3 years ago at Magref Empire, a feast was held in honor of Prince Horus's 12th birthday. Everyone congratulates the prince on his milestone. Oh boy, we know how this is going to go. The prince smiles and waves at his guests while his maids are happy to know that Prince Horus is finally at the right age to know about magical affinity attribute. Once that's mentioned, the maids go full gossip mode about Prince Horus. Amongst the 5 siblings, Prince Horus actually has the highest magical power, so everyone, including the maids, are confident that the prince will also acquire a strong elemental affinity. Perhaps fire? Another maid doesn't agree with fire since she guesses Prince Horus will be able to wield wind. A third maid chirps in and says she'll bet on water. Prince Horus himself also wonders what element he'll get. His face seems to be more of worry than excitement. Now that the maids are already talking about Prince Horus, it's not shocking for them to also mention the prince's questionable background. Before she could say anything else, another maid scolds her for even mentioning such gossip on a momentous occasion like today. After some time, it's finally time to find out what Prince Horus's magical affinity attribute is. Hovering his hand over the lectern-like countertop and light begins to radiate around Prince Horus. However, silence deafens the room as his magical affinity attribute is revealed. Much to everyone's horror, Prince Horus's magical affinity attribute is sand. Gone are the congratulatory smiles from the guests. Dismay and hostility are now showing off from them. Even Prince Horus is surprised with the stench of discrimination come off from everyone around him. All eyes are on Prince Horus, judging him for having sand, a single element, as a magical affinity attribute. To them, this means Prince Horus is stuck using just one element and can't use any other magic. Now the maid's words from earlier resonate throughout the room. Prince Horus, even with high magical power, can't seem to escape the fact that he's a concubine's child. And everyone is now talking about it now. Tears flood Prince Horus's eyes as his own father harshly tells him to stay away, mocking him for his inferiority, even calling him a disgrace to the royal family. That unfortunate day ended Prince Horus's life as the 5th prince of the Magref Empire. To this day, he can still recall everyone's judgmental eyes and taunting laughs. So, that's basically the story of how Prince Horus ended up being exiled to the desert. All he could think of in this scorching heat are the words from everyone including his own family. A disgrace. A concubine's child. Single sand affinity. Alone in the desert has Prince Horus drowning in these insults. Would things have been different if his affinity wasn't sand? Everyone might have judged him wrongly for it, but Prince Horus thinks otherwise. He believes sand magic can be amazing. Clutching his chest and biting his lip, anger surges throughout Prince Horus's body as he begins stomping on the taunting message written on the sand. As he tries to erase it with his feet, Prince Horus yells in frustration. He believes this burnt message is from his 3rd brother who has fire affinity. Prince Horus tried so hard, thinking he might be useful someday as well. Even if he gives up now, nothing will change. He'll still live in the desert, alone. Come to think of it, it's literally the best place for his sand magic. With determination in his eyes, Prince Horus focuses on the brighter side of things and begins to use his magic to look for water. Crouching on the sand, Prince Horus uses his sand sense skill. As he closes his eyes, it's like waves of frequencies travel all around the area. Once he finds the water's location, Prince Horus then uses sand magic, Sand Ripple, to create a sand wave to help him travel faster. It's like he's surfing. Only better. A smile finally forms on Prince Horus's face. Soon he laughs as he recalls everyone's hurtful words. They might think exiling him to the desert was a punishment, but for him, the desert is the best place there is. Finally, we get to see our hero genuinely smile. As soon as he arrives at the location, Prince Horus gets off the sand wave and quickly uses Sand Swirl to dig out the water's location. It's a deep sunken sand, so Prince Horus has to peek through it to finally see that there's indeed water bubbling below. Now that the prince has an ample supply of water, he begins clutching his hands, creating floating sand cubes. With sand magic Sand Castle, Prince Horus begins making a place to live in using his magic. A top-tier castle soon arises, making Prince Horus proud of his recent feat. It's not looking too shabby, don't you think? Inspecting the inside of the castle, Prince Horus begins to realize the interior's too plain for his liking. Touching the sandy walls, he begins modifying the spell to decorate the place. Now it's looking much finer for the prince. He's not done yet. With his hands still on the walls, Prince Horus still continues modifying the place. After all, a castle does need beautiful decorations too. The prince has got wonderful ideas for his castle. A lobby, some guest rooms, a kitchen, and a throne room. Though the last one isn't really necessary right now. He even builds himself a private room and study. It's all beginning to take shape now. His new life in the desert, can you believe it? Knowing full well he's all alone in the desert, Prince Horus also builds a golem to protect him from unexpected danger. Besides, it makes a nice company for the prince too. It can be quite lonely in the desert after all. Finally, in the comforts of his bed, Prince Horus lies down for a bit so he could think over his next plans. He already has water and a home. Now he needs to find food and plants near water. He also needs glass for windows. And judging by how rough his sand bed feels like, Prince Horus wants some fur to make it comfier. Sitting up, Prince Horus uses his sand sense to begin looking for something useful. His magic scavengers across the vast desert. Closing his eyes, the prince begins to feel for something. Much to his surprise, it's not on his list of needed things, but a person, a stranger who just happened to collapse in the middle of the desert. Trouble brews for the stranger, as Prince Horus could also sense multiple things surrounding the stranger. Swiftly getting out of the castle, Prince Horus uses Sand Ripple to hurry towards the stranger. Meanwhile, the cloaked stranger had indeed collapsed, and the trusted camel hovers over the stranger to protect its owner. Goblins are now slowly closing in on the duo, ready to devour their prey. The camel isn't fazed. Instead, it gives the goblins a resolute stare down as it continues to cover its owner. The goblins jump into the opportunity of attacking. And just in time, Prince Horus arrives and quickly summons Sand Spear to eradicate these nasty monsters. All of the goblins stood no chance against the prince. Woo, Prince Horus sure has impeccable timing. But wait, there's no time to celebrate just yet. Some of the goblins have managed to escape, and there are more that came out of nowhere. The prince guesses the ones he killed were all decoys. In that case, maybe this next magic skill will finally do the trick. Lifting his hands, Prince Horus casts Sand Magic, Sandstorm. A tornado soon appears, but before it could finally annihilate the remaining goblins, the beasts have quickly surrounded the strangers once more. Prince Horus has no choice but to cast another spell, Sand Magic, Sand Ring. Ripples of sand rings appear before the prince, instantly swiping the goblins in half. Literally split in half. Once the coast is clear, Prince Horus asks the duo if they're okay. He then approaches the stranger that collapsed and unveils the stranger's cloak. And wow, Prince Horus did not expect to find such a beautiful maiden underneath. It takes Prince Horus a few seconds to stop himself from staring at the stranger's face, knowing it's not really the right time to do goggly eyes. As Prince Horus carries the girl, the camel neighs in distrust. The prince reassures the horse that he's just there to help them, and that they must relocate to somewhere safe first. Using Sand Ripple, Prince Horus and the camel ride the sand wave to get to the castle quicker. When the camel gets frightened, the prince once again reassures it that it's just his magic. Doing its magic? Get it? They soon arrive at the castle. The camel can't believe their savior owns such an extravagant castle too. Inside, Prince Horus immediately places the girl on the sand bed. Staring at her, Prince Horus already knows he needs to find something nutritious and easy to eat for the girl. Or else, they can kiss the girl's chances of survival goodbye. Asking the camel to wait with the girl, Prince Horus goes back outside to use his sand sense to find anything that could help the girl. Frustration begins to grow on him when he senses a biological reaction from somewhere. It's worth a checking, I guess. As soon as Prince Horus arrives at the location, he sees white and black ants fighting. With the white ants outnumbered, Prince Horus helps them out by using Sand Spring on the black ants. The black ants are sent jumping over the sand. They eventually give up and go running straight home. Looking at the retreating ants, Prince Horus questions if he just witnessed a conflict between the desert ants. It doesn't take him much time to mull over it because a white ant had just gently nudged his pants. The white ants begin talking in ant language, to which the prince responds with a confused, "You're welcome." As a token of gratitude, they hand out ball-like membrane to Prince Horus. The prince quickly inspects it and sees that it has a sticky liquid inside. Giving it a whiff, the prince finds out it actually smells sweet like ant honey. Now that he has this, he thanks the ants for the gift before waving them goodbye to return to the castle. He quickly feeds the ant honey to the unconscious girl. Little by little, Prince Horus takes his time in feeding the girl. He's fully confident he's gonna save her. The next day, Prince Horus begins waking up. Apparently, he had fallen asleep while seated beside the girl. He's soon greeted with the girl's worried look. The girl is finally awake. She immediately thanks Prince Horus for saving her and expresses her desire to repay him somehow. The prince gently turns her down, telling her that he's more than glad she's recovered. The girl, however, had other plans in mind. She asks the prince for a favor that he might think is too much. But she's got to shoot her shot, right? She then brazenly asks Prince Horus if she could stay with him in his castle. Tears begin to form in the girl's eyes as she pleads for a place in Prince Horus' life. I meant castle. Definitely castle. When he hears the girl offer anything in return, Prince Horus's mind must have gone awry because as soon as he thought of Ait, he quickly gives himself a sounding slap. He then asks the girl on how she ended up in the desert. Before that, the girl introduces herself as Isis, and her camel is named Isis. Once again thanks the prince for saving them from the goblins. After an exchange of introductions, the prince asks for the reason why Isis had collapsed in the desert. Sadness paints Isis's face. She may not be able to divulge the whole story, but she does share how she was driven out her country, just like Prince Horus. This shocks Isis. She didn't expect the prince to have been exiled like her. Prince Horus then shares about his struggles at first. Luckily for him, his sand attribute came in handy, and he's in the perfect place too. In the desert, he'll never run out of sand. Upon hearing Prince Horus's attribute, Isis comments on its rarity and uniqueness. It's not really a common element to begin with. Suddenly, Isis seems to have realized something after laying her hands on the sandbed. Before Prince Horus could utter a single word, Isis stands on her feet and ventures outside. She gives the place a full inspection, noticing everything from the doors and hallway down to the intricately crafted pillars are all made of sand. Isis then asks Prince Horus if he built the place all by himself. Although confused with the question, the prince quickly confirms this. Now the girl thinks this is the reason why Prince Horus was banished from his country, because sand magic is only limited to using sand and everyone has told the prince it's completely useless. This infuriates Isis so much that she's not afraid to show how angry she is right now. Prince Horus was able to build such an amazing castle and even saved a stranger like her. She can't believe people had exiled Prince Horus just because he managed to have sand magic. With much seriousness on her face, Isis grabs Prince Horus's hands and tells him they'll build the greatest kingdom together. Staring back at her determined eyes, Prince Horus can't help but agree with her. Realizing how wrong it may have sounded, Isis lets go of their clasped hands and quickly explains she only meant she wanted to repay Prince Horus and that she doesn't have anywhere else to go. She really didn't meant it in a special way or something. Nope. Jittery, Isis continues to mumble an explanation to Prince Horus. She doesn't have ulterior motives or anything, and, well, also what, Isis? Before she could continue rambling, Prince Horus gives her a soft smile whilst extending his hand. With both of them having nowhere else to go, Prince Horus proposes they both help each other out starting today. Isis slowly takes Prince Horus's hand, confirming her agreement. Now that that's decided, on to more pressing matters. Prince Horus quickly leads Isis outside and using Sand Ripple, they travel together with Raku. Isis is beyond dizzy with their mode of transportation. At least Raku seems to be enjoying it now. While holding onto Raku for dear life, Isis asks the prince as to what kind of magic is he using right now. The prince quickly explains it's sand wave and makes sand ripples so they can move faster. They finally arrive at an oasis. Prince Horus plans on grabbing a few plants to put outside the castle. Isis is amazed with how Prince Horus had detected this place. The prince then tells her that he used sand-based magic that can locate objects through reflected sound. Isis is beyond amazed now. Prince Horus was able to use a precision spell that transmits clear vibrations? Spell wow. Spotting some coconut, Prince Horus picks one up. Now that they have plants, they'll need to hunt and bring back some meat and fur. It doesn't take them much time. Before you know it, they're back at the castle with meat and fur. Thanks to Prince Horus's magic, they were able to detect movement so hunting was easier to do. Prince Horus immediately gets to work in the kitchen. He wants to remove the air for meat preservation, and the nuts and cacti are to be placed near the water. Also, they'll need to handle storage and transport. All of this made easier because of Prince Horus's sand magic. Venturing outside, Prince Horus has already planted the cactus, but much to his dismay, it doesn't have the oasis-y vibes just yet. It'll take a bit of time, so they'll have to be patient. A bright idea comes to Isis's mind. She quickly gets on her knees and uses her life magic. Growth acceleration. The coconut they planted is now in full bloom. With Isis's command, its leaves begin to unfurl as it takes up all the sunlight it needs. The coconut tree is now fully grown, even bearing some coconut to harvest. Isis continues to use her magic and eventually turns the barren area into an oasis. Jumping in joy, Prince Horus wants to give Isis a hug from the amazing magic she's done. Unfortunately, his hands are met with Isis's hands, confusing Prince Horus altogether. Isis then apologizes to the prince and asks if she could have a quick bath. After agreeing, Prince Horus heads back inside the castle, understanding that they've been outside all day and that Isis would want to wash away all that sweat. Once the prince leaves, Isis exhales a sigh of relief. She then begins undressing while reassuring herself that it's all fine. To preserve her dignity, she should at least clean herself up, right? Isis can't have Prince Horus thinking she stinks. After fully undressing, Isis crouches towards Raku, asking if she smells bad. The camel gives an expression that kinda looks like he doesn't want to comment on it. At long last, Isis dips herself in the water and immediately relaxes in the feeling of the cold water against her skin. She makes sure to wash herself up, rubbing away all the dirt that's stuck on her. While enjoying her bath, Isis asks Raku as to how she should repay Prince Horus and what might make him happy. Well, a bath sounds pretty nice for the prince too. Speaking of, Prince Horus is just by the castle entrance waiting for Isis to finish her bath. He can actually hear Isis's ramblings from outdoors. Outside, Isis is still in her birthday suit, stretching out her aching muscles. She must think of something to repay the boy who saved her life. Prince Horus is having a hard time, frustrated with all these thoughts inside his head. He doesn't want to think about it, but it's getting quite hard to not think about a beautiful girl mid-bath. The idea of a shy Isis wanting to repay him big time is an interesting thought. Perhaps some skin-to-skin bonding might do the trick. Suddenly, Prince Horus hears a scream coming from outside. That's definitely Isis. He goes rushing outside, thinking she might be in danger again. But he stops mid-sentence as he takes in Isis's body while holding onto a honey ant. Isis soon realizes the predicament they're in right now. Her face grows red as she struggles to find the words to fill the awkward silence between them. Covering his eyes, Prince Horus quickly turns away. He tries to tell Isis that he didn't see anything. He didn't see anything but Isis's melons? Seems like the prince is trying to convince himself more than Isis. Isis has also grabbed her dress from earlier and covers herself. She then tells Prince Horus that the honey ants looked kinda troubled. After Isis gets dressed, the two are still awkward with each other. Look at them with their backs towards each other. Prince Horus explains he was just a bit startled with Isis's scream. The girl also tells him the honey ants sort of showed up out of nowhere while she was bathing. Speaking of, the honey ant from earlier approaches Prince Horus and tries to communicate with him. Unfortunately, Prince Horus can't speak ant language, so this will be a bit hard to decipher. Observing the honey ant, Isis believes it wants them to go with it. The honey ant, while still climbed up on Prince Horus's hands, nods in agreement. I guess they're going. The prince knows they'll need to go and make connections if they're going to spend their lives in the desert, so to the ant kingdom they go. With the honey ant's guidance, they soon arrive at what looks like a castle built entirely of earth. The honey ants have a nest for a kingdom. Entering the small entrance, both Prince Horus and Isis are amazed at how spacious the place actually is. It's also outside of Prince Horus's range of sand detection. Nearby, Prince Horus takes note of an injured honey ant that has lost one of its legs. The poor thing seems to be struggling with crawling. They soon arrive at the Grand Hall. The honey ant immediately points towards the center end of the hall where the queen of the honey ants sits. She welcomes her visitors to their ant nest and is pleased to meet both Prince Horus and Isis. Prince Horus's eyes widen with surprise. Did the queen ant just talk? Not just any language, but human language. Both Prince Horus and Isis introduce themselves to the queen ant. At some point after their conversation, the queen ant is now riding Prince Horus's sand wave. She gives their gratitude for accepting their request, but is also worried if their request is really okay with the prince. Prince Horus gives his assurance, expressing his keenness in helping the honey ants. After all, it's an endless desert. They'll have no one to lean on but each other. So what really is this request about? Earlier, back at the honey ant's nest, the queen asks of Prince Horus to escort her in meeting the king of the iron ants and attempt to resolve their indifferences. According to the queen, honey ants are bad at combat, so if things stay the way they are right now, things won't go well for the honey ants. The queen politely asks for Prince Horus to lend them his power of sand magic. Thinking about it, the prince believes the honey ants need improvement in their combat skills. But Prince Horus and Isis are fairly new to the desert, so a recon would be beneficial for them as they speak. Prince Horus then proposes a transactional relationship with the honey ants. The prince and Isis will provide the honey ants provision of magic, combat, and protection. In return, he requests the honey ants for their honey. Without further hesitation, the queen ant agrees with the fair proposal. After this, they immediately head out to meet the king of the iron ants, hence why they're all riding Prince Horus's sand wave. The queen ant then shares how surprised she is with Prince Horus's magic. She never expected single-element attribute like Sad is this powerful. Isis chimes in, saying the prince's magic is actually amazing. In fact, Sandwave is actually made for combat and allows no one to follow them. The queen is now amazed they were able to procure help from someone as powerful as Prince Horus. The prince disagrees with this. To him, it's all a mutual understanding. They're both helping each other out. The honey ant riding Prince Horus's head finally makes a sound, signaling they're near the iron ant's nest. Unlike the honey ant's castle, the iron ant's kingdom looks more of a mountain. The iron ants guarding their entrance alarms everyone of Prince Horus's arrival. The honey ant queen calls Prince Horus, who takes this as a signal to use his sand magic just enough for the iron ants to faint. Activate sand magic, Great Sand Wave. Just like that, sand formed like great tsunami waves before the two iron ants. They're no match for such power, instantly drowning in the sand. Prince Horus, together with Isis and the honey ant queen, are able to penetrate the castle's entrance now. Inside, another group of iron ants await them. Using Sandbind, Prince Horus successfully trapped the iron ants in the sand, leaving them be as they venture inside the castle. The iron ants' fortress is like the honey ants. It's wide and sturdy. The queen shares the ants actually use iron sand for the place. The iron ants have managed to build their kingdom that's rich in iron sand. That's why their place is well built. Touching the rocky walls, Prince Horus feels the sand. Though it's called iron, it still is sand. If only he's able to control this. If the king would allow them to have a mutual contract like the honey ants. Prince Horus is ready to help the king in return for some iron sand. All of a sudden, the sand walls begin to shape-shift. This amazes Isis so much, it's like watching the walls become alive. Prince Horus stares in astonishment. He never knew he can also control iron sand too. With this discovery, Prince Horus won't have any problems restraining the iron ants. He also won't have to worry about the remaining sand he has with him. All of them walk the wide hallway of the iron ants' home. At some point, the king finally makes himself known. He expresses his surprise on seeing that the queen herself came all the way to their kingdom. Even better, she brought people with her. Sitting on his throne room in the center end of the hallway is none other than the king of the iron ants. The queen of the honey ants immediately tells of her desire to talk about a possible ceasefire. However, the king is arrogant AF. He needs no such thing. The queen tries to persuade him, telling him that there should always be room for discussion between them. The king suddenly gets on his feet, carrying his sharp weapon with one hand. He then taunts the queen, telling her that she'll die in his hands. Screaming, the king promises death upon the queen of the honey ants. Lunging towards the queen, the king aims his sharp spear towards her. Prince Horus quickly gets in front of the queen, shielding her as he uses iron sand binding magic for offense. The queen then tells Prince Horus that the king of the iron ants isn't normally like this. Something feels awfully wrong with him. Prince Horus then uses his sand sense and immediately discovers there's another life detected in the king's head. Isis guesses it might be a parasitic demon and suggests they use her life magic to cure the king. For now, Prince Horus plans on tearing the parasite off the king. Prince Horus needs to do this without getting too close to the parasite and without harming the king. Concentrating his magic on precise sand control, Prince Horus starts hovering his hands in order to make a golem. As soon as the golem is complete, Prince Horus orders it to hold down the king. But the king manages to break the golem with a single swoop of his weapon. Both Isis and the honey ant queen are amazed with how strong the king is. This does not dissuade Prince Horus though. Using his magic, he casts another spell to make another golem. This time, the golem surprises the king from behind and successfully subdues him. Holding the king in place, Prince Horus rushes towards them so he could use his magic to get rid of the parasite in the king's head. Prince Horus begins to sweat as he carefully navigates his sand inside the king's head. He's able to locate the parasite. Now he just needs to fish it out of the king's head. In time, Prince Horus successfully gets rid of the parasite. As it jumps in the air, Prince Horus quickly uses his sand magic to squash the parasite. The prince then asks Isis of the king's condition. Thankfully, he's safe. His energy might have been consumed intensely by the parasite, but Isis is confident he'll wake up soon. While holding the king in her arms, the queen thanks Prince Horus for helping them out. The prince tells her there's no need for it since he only did what was necessary, both as a good neighbor and trading partner. The king finally wakes up and the first one he sees is the honey ant queen. As soon as he roams his ant eyes around the room, he's startled with Isis and Prince Horus's presence. The king gets into battle mode again, thinking the duo is there to bring down their kingdom. Isis immediately hides behind Prince Horus's back, while the queen explains to the king that they're actually the ones who got rid of the parasite in his head. Confusion clouds the king's face. The honey ant queen then tells him she'll explain everything that had transpired earlier. After a little recap, the king is furious to find out he was manipulated into a demonic state. On bended knees, the king of the iron ants begs for the queen's forgiveness and expresses his gratitude towards Prince Horus. To express his sincerity, the king wants to gift Prince Horus something as a way to take responsibility for his actions. Albeit it wasn't him but the parasite that controlled him. Raising his hand, Prince Horus asks the king and queen that they discuss such matters at his own castle. And upon arrival, the ants show their amazement of the place. The queen herself has heard of her honey ants' gossip of the splendor Prince Horus's castle has, as well as the beautiful oasis he's made. Both the king and queen get into a conversation about the place. They see Natsumeyashi honey, and wow, the decorations inside the castle. Just how amazing is the prince's magic, right? Prince Horus could only listen to them in awkwardness. But they're here for important matters. They soon get seated in Prince Horus's private study. The prince immediately goes down to business. Before he divulges his proposal, Prince Horus goes silent. He's quite bothered by the thought that he doesn't know the king and queen's names. Unfortunately, both ants don't have one. Scratching the back of his head, Prince Horus thinks this might pose a bit of a problem with their future relationship. Because they don't have names, it seems a bit unfamiliar towards the prince. Both the king and queen converse in ant language, seemingly discussing the problem. After a while, they both agree to have Prince Horus bestow them names. The prince grabs the chance immediately. While it's presumptuous of him, Prince Horus suggests the king have the name Ain, and for the queen, Mel. Both ants are delighted with their new names, telling Prince Horus they'll both treasure their names for life. Out of nowhere, both ants begin to glow, almost as if they're being encapsulated by light. In place of the king and queen, ants are now full-blown humans. And what a shocker this is for both Prince Horus and Isis. The queen jumps in joy as she tells Ain of their successful transformations. But before anything else, I think we'll all agree that these two need some clothes pronto. Oh, and did I mention that these two are now devoting themselves to Prince Horus? The more the merrier, right? As Ain and Mel now think of Prince Horus as their new king, they both want to become his kin. This leaves Prince Horus in a major nosebleed moment, and it's not from their declaration at all. Fortunately enough, Isis instantly shields Prince Horus's eyes. While Prince Horus had a lot of questions for Ain and Mel, clothes for the Ant Queen is a must right now. Even Isis agrees with this. Clothes seem to be least of Mel's priorities right now. To her, it's more important to cure Prince Horus's nosebleed. Isis screams from the top of her lungs. The least Mel could do is cover herself up. The Honey Ant Queen quickly apologizes as she isn't used to being human and all the etiquette that comes with it. Isis then hands Mel her clothes just for the time being. But because both girls have very different body types, Isis's clothes look like a mini towel on the queen. Isis then covers the prince's eyes, dumbfounded with this spectacle. Prince Horus then suggests he make a robe out of sand. After that little fiasco, both Ain and Prince Horus walk the hallways of the castle as they talk about how they got their human forms. According to Ain, it's just like the legends foretold. When a magical being is given a name by a human, a contract forms between them. Ain only expected for them to become familiars, but to his surprise, they actually turned into humans. Even with the unexpected surprise, Ain still calls this a great fortune and is happy to serve Prince Horus loyally until his body turns to dust. Upon the mention of serving the prince, Prince Horus then asks about the Iron Ants' kingdom. Surely it will be such a hassle to go back and forth their kingdoms. Pointing outside, Ain has already solved this problem beforehand. He quickly relocated the Iron Ants' kingdom just in front of Prince Horus's castle. Spooked, Prince Horus asks when did all of this happen? He didn't really suspect a single thing. As Prince Horus's new kin, their duty is to be always by the prince's side, so this is it. Aside from the ants' relocation, Prince Horus spots Mel in the oasis with her honey ants. She's currently making clothes by unraveling leaves into threads and weaving them together. Isis, seeing the prince from above, asks Prince Horus to come on down because she needs a bit of help with something. Once outside, Isis shows the prince an area she'd like to turn into a farmland. Prince Horus thinks it's a good idea, but since it's sand, crops won't properly grow because of the lack of water. In order for them to grow crops, they'll need to make soil. Agreeing with Isis, Prince Horus tells her they'll need to gather the needed materials first. Together with Ain and Mel, they all venture out to the desert and come across a lion-like monster. Ain swiftly steps out, confident with the strength he's earned together with their human appearance. When Prince Horus asks if he'll be okay, Ain bravely tells him, of course. It's not like he's going into battle without his trusted spear. The beast immediately attacks Ain, but the Ant King manages to defend himself by using his spear. He quickly pushes the monster backward, calling it pathetic as it's no challenge defeating it. And with a single blow to its head, Ain defeats the beast easy peasy. With his spear in his hand, Ain smirks, knowing full well he's gotten stronger in his human form. Prince Horus then congratulates Ain for a job well done. The Ant King is, of course, honored by the prince's praise. The prince then asks Ain on what kind of magic he used to defeat the monster. The Ant King happily shares it was merely a thrust with magic power infused into his spear. Now Prince Horus is beyond amazed. Ain was able to take down such beast with just a magical thrust. Nearby, Mel notices crows circling around the dead monster. She quickly uses her light magic to scare the crows away, and it worked perfectly. The prince once again gets curious about the ant's magic. Asking Mel this time, Mel shares the light magic she just used is from evolving into a human. Prince Horus then sulks over this. Apparently, light magic is supposed to be pretty rare. Seeing the prince's reaction, Mel quickly tells him her magic is for his use and at his immediate disposal. Prince Horus gets yet another nosebleed from Mel's frontal display of assets, making Isis sigh in frustration. And the fact that Mel doesn't seem bothered by the thought makes Isis worry even more. Something catches Isis's attention. Pointing towards another direction, everyone looks at a field of sorghum growing wild. It's a cereal grain from the grass family known for its versatility and hardiness. It also tastes really great. Isis is overjoyed with their luck right now. Finding white sorghum in the desert? Who knew? Isis then tells everyone to start harvesting a bit to take home. They'll also gather dried plants to use as materials for their currently empty field. Turning to Isis, Prince Horus is grateful to have an ally that's knowledgeable about plants. It's really a great help. A smiling Isis assures the prince to leave it all up to her. Going back to the castle, Isis lectures everyone about plants. In order for them to have good crops, they'll absolutely need good soil. So before anything else, they'll need to make compost. Prince Horus hands Isis the sandbox she requested. Both Ain and Mel also got her the rest of the materials. So first, Isis put the shredded palm leaves from when they made thread for clothing. Then the dried sorghum, a bit of sand, and lastly water. Isis also put in the leftover dates from when the honey ants made nectar. After that, she mixes it all together before using life magic to speed up fermentation. Isis then drains the fermented liquid and adds in dried magic beast dung and finely ground palm bark. Mix again, speed up fermentation again, drain once more, and voila! Look at how well it turned out. It's all nice and crumbly, but it does smell a bit. Even so, everyone's impressed with Isis's life magic. Now it's Prince Horus's turn. He then gets to shaping the compost into rods using sand magic. Then he lines them up like so in order to have farm plots in place. Turning to Isis, the prince asks for her approval. It all looks great. It might not look much now, but Isis assures everyone they'll expand it all later. And after the soil gets better, it'll be an even greater field. Ain can't help praise the improvement their surroundings are making. And it's all thanks to everyone's hard work. They now have a castle, an oasis, a farm field, and of course Ain and Mel's ant kingdoms. Prince Horus gives everyone a warm smile as he thanks them for their hard work. Everyone is touched by Prince Horus's words. They might not be the same level as Horus, but it's truly an honor to be praised by their new king. With that said, Ain gets a bright idea of building a watchtower. It's true that the view here is great and they'll all enjoy looking at it on a watchtower. The castle is actually based on a hill. However, the west and north sides where the fields are have higher ground and dunes. It's built so people could look down on the castle. Thinking it over, Prince Horus realizes they do need a watchtower. Of course, Ain gives his vow on protecting Prince Horus, so the watchtower isn't anything urgent. But nah, they're already here, so might as well do it. Prince Horus immediately uses his sand magic to make a sand tower next to the castle. It's as splendid as the castle, too. Astonishment paints their faces as Prince Horus expresses his eagerness to climb the new tower. And boy is Ain right, the view is indeed amazingly, mind-blowingly beautiful. As the wind blows Isis's hair, Prince Horus can't help but stare at something even more beautiful. His romantic ambiance does die down with all the background noise though. Look at Raku climb this tower's wall. Even Ain is cheering him on while Mel is worried for the camel's safety. Prince Horus thought they'd all be soaking in this sense of accomplishment. But oh well, this still feels like them. This is their moment. Turning towards the others, Prince Horus chimes in to warn Raku about doing dangerous stuff. Both Prince Horus and Isis are startled to see that Raku has been kidnapped by a large bird monster. I guess this calls for another adventure in the desert. Quick on his feet, Horus jumps off the sand tower so he could go and save Raku. He uses his sand wave to try and catch up with the bird that took Raku away. As soon as Horus is almost directly below the bird, he uses Sand Pillar to launch himself mid-air. Both the bird and Raku are shocked to see Horus in front of them. Horus immediately uses an incantation spell called Sand Dust, Violent Fist. From the name itself, it has summoned a huge sand fist that knocks out the giant bird. The bird's claws quickly let go of Raku, making both the camel and Horus happy. However, they seem to forget one little detail. Now that the bird has let go of Raku, he's literally falling off the sky now. Horus uses Sand Pillar once more to quickly reach the falling camel. Once the prince has his hands on Raku, Horus immediately turns the pillar into a sandball to cushion their landing. The sandball bounces off the desert sand. Soon, both Horus and Raku fall off the ball, wincing as they whoosh through the sand. After a while of that terrible landing, Raku and Horus lie still in the sand. The latter is beyond thankful for everything to be okay now. Horus then turns his head and realizes that the sand they're laying on is actually gold dust. They both sit down and observe the surrounding area. It's actually gold dust. And nearby, they see a descending staircase. Curious, Horus wonders what kind of entrance this leads to, or maybe a labyrinth. Horus then lifts his hand, controlling the gold dust like ordinary sand. This made Horus realize that it's pretty much the same as collecting iron sand. Now he can do the same with gold dust. He then uses Sand Sense and a wave of gold dust begin to travel inside the staircase. As soon as it's done with recon, Horus reassuringly tells Raku that there's no signs of danger downstairs, so might as well try going in. After Raku agrees, Horus makes a sand golem to have it lead the way. It doesn't take long for them to reach downstairs where it's somehow like a beautiful underground castle. Horus is curious if this kind of construction is normal for a labyrinth. He was really expecting to find something more like a cave. As they walk through the hallway, Horus also takes note of the decorations on the pillars. As gold twinkle in the light, it gives off a beautiful falling effect for a decoration. If they could somehow bring back some gold dust, Horus can decorate their castle like this too. In Horus's mind, he's worried whether this place is truly a safe labyrinth or one that's infested with monsters. A light emitting from an open door catches Horus's attention. Is this the path leading to the outside? As soon as they enter the door, they're met with a room full of golden decoration, and in the center, a humongous statue lies. Horus and Raku's faces are full of wonder and amazement. This place is truly glittering with gold. Looking around, Horus doesn't seem to see any signs of monsters. Strange enough, there's also no signs of human presence as well. So is this place a labyrinth? But how about that giant statue in the middle? So it isn't a labyrinth. Horus now has a much closer description of the place. It actually reminds him of a palace rather than a labyrinth. While Horus has his back on the giant statue, he hears a sounding voice. It tells Horus that the statue is actually Knaid, a divine sphinx. Turning around, Horus is startled to see it's the statue talking to him. It talks again, telling Horus it's not a statue at all. Wide-eyed, Horus apologizes for not realizing that there was a person living in here. It accepts Horus's apology, saying people are actually used to Knaid's dwelling. Most people who ventured inside this palace have been blinded by the gold outside. They pretty much get excited about their wives. But that's not what it looks like for Horus, which piques the statue's interest. Trying to casually escape this awkward yet sort of scary experience, Horus tries to bid the statue goodbye. Unfortunately, it won't allow him to do so. Seeing that the boy had taken a liking to the place, it tells Horus to stay, even assuring the prince it won't let him experience any hardship in life. Now Horus is doomed. He begins to frantically explain that he can't since he has comrades outside. He can't possibly stay in this palace forever. This doesn't bode well with the statue, calling it disrespectful to just come in and out freely. Even though its wife said she would keep Horus by her side, why can't the fallen prince simply accept that? Horus now knows this is getting way too serious, and since it has come to this, he has no choice in the matter. The statue begins moving off the ground, telling the brazen Horus they'll play a game. A crystal-like sphere starts growing atop the ceiling. The statue then instructs Horus to answer its wife's question before the heavenly gold falls. The question isn't some simple why or how, it's a question with a correct answer. If Horus answers correctly, the statue will let him out with a special privilege. If he has time to think, then maybe Horus has a fighting chance on answering this right. Hopefully. The statue then begins to ramble a riddle. It's something that cuts itself into pieces and lends a hand to the weak. However, it's overflowing with compassion. It kills all living things, making it cruel. It doubts everything in this world and always wishing for eternity. That is cowardice and constant sorrow. It takes without being satisfied, making it greedy. It then tells Horus to think about it without rushing. However, even though he has ample time left, Horus mouths his answer. The answer is humans. The statue is taken aback with the boy's answer. Silence fills the room before it booms in laughter. Horus begins to doubt if he answered correctly and asks the statue. The statue reassures him that it was indeed the correct answer. How Horus casually gave out his answer just made the statue laugh is all. It then asks Horus as to why he was so quick to answer, and the boy nonchalantly explains how the problem itself wasn't particularly difficult. And Horus thinks it's human nature. The statue agrees. But all the people who came here couldn't answer at all. Horus is the first one to do so. And the reason? Horus couldn't think of anything to say. In his mind, he thinks it's just because those people didn't know the answer to the problem. The statue speaks up, telling Horus that even though those people understood, they still couldn't answer the question. Because of pride, disposition, such things become restraints. While the clergy are blinded by money, the thief laughs. Such a noble thing to witness. The statue then praises Horus for being splendid. After giving his thanks, the statue then reminds Horus that it's about time to leave the place. The statue begins to glow, literally eye-blinding glowing. As Horus covers one eye, he peeks through the other and finds out the statue is gone. Lo and behold, in its place is a woman with dark hair. This is none other than the Sphinx. Horus then asks her why she's in human form, to which she only answers that she's a divine beast, and transforming into different forms is no trouble at all. Stretching out her body, the Sphinx doesn't hide the fact that she likes this human form. The only drawback with it is the heavy flesh hanging on her front. Squeezing her melons, she does recall human males preferring bigger ones like hers. Noticing Horus's silence, the Sphinx asks if he prefers smaller ones or maybe he wants to touch them. Horus could only stare at the Sphinx's ample flesh, seemingly dazed by the display. On a serious note, the Sphinx reminds Horus of what she said earlier before the game. If Horus managed to answer correctly, then she will let him out with a special privilege. And that is the Sphinx herself. Here we thought the special privilege would have something to do with Horus making it out alive or maybe some gold dust to take home. I guess this lady will do. Now with an extra person with them, Horus uses his sand wave to go back to their castle. It's proving to a bit difficult though. Horus calls the attention of Knaid. This woman is way too close for his liking. Or rather, something else is pressed on his chest as of the moment. With Knaid tightly hugging Horus, she seductively whispers in his ears on how she's doing it on purpose. Oh boy. Wait till this lady meets Isis. Earlier at the palace where Knaid lived, when the woman divulges she's actually the reward for Horus, the prince looked quite dumbfounded. This reaction wasn't what Knaid was expecting. She's a divine beast, offering herself to become Horus's kin. But the prince doesn't look happy at all. He immediately explains how it just feels all too overwhelming. Knaid then tells Horus they're just basically making a contract. If Horus takes her, he can freely use the gold sand as much as he likes. And besides, Kinnaid then turns towards the door as she informs Horus it won't budge open without her. Rest assured, if there are problems, Kinnaid will be at his beck and call. That's what led them here, riding the sand wave as Kinnaid tightly wraps her arms around Horus's neck. Horus tries to make an excuse so the Sphinx could let go of him. After telling Kinnaid that it's too hot since they're in the desert, the woman understands and lets go of Horus. Now that Kinnaid isn't choking him with her chest, Horus stands up. The woman then addresses how awkward it is when Horus talks to her and asks that he give her a name. After much thought, Horus comes up with Phi. Phi boasts of laughter, startling Horus in the process. When asked what she's laughing about, Phi only tells Horus how he's an outrageous person and looks forward to serving him. Although Horus had noticed the change of subject, he doesn't ask about it and just focuses on getting home. Arriving at the castle, Isis greets Horus and Raku. The prince gives Isis the 411 on the situation, and let me tell you, Isis does not look happy at all. Isis has been tending to plant life matters when she finds out about Phi and the gold sand Horus had acquired. In her mind, it's pretty suspicious that a woman like Phi would be alone in the desert. Ahem. You were as well, Isis. Noticing Phi's beauty and charm, Isis has a hunch that Horus is being tricked. She has to stay sharp. Green isn't a nice color on you, Isis. At the behest of Horus, Phi introduces herself to everyone in the castle. The Sphinx is now Horus's kin, ready to serve her lord. As soon as Isis, Ain, and Mel hear that she's a Sphinx, they're all very surprised. Phi wasn't kidding when she told Horus she's a divine beast. Ain is truly impressed by Horus's skills. They're all walking the staircase when Horus tells everyone that Phi will be living with them from now on. With this, they'll need to prepare a room for her. Horus then asks Phi if she has any preferences on her sleeping arrangements. The Sphinx casually drops how she wants to stay in the same room as Horus, making Isis gloom and irritation. Phi isn't finished just yet. She then tells Horus how it's only natural for a kin to stay close to its master. Meanwhile, Icy is writhing in the corner. Possibly from this nonsense she's hearing from Phi, Isis tries to mask her irritation and explains how it's not proper for Phi, in her current womanly form, to be sharing a room with Horus at all. Luckily, Horus agrees with Isis. He also needs his own privacy, you know. This earns a triumphant smirk from Isis, who tells the Sphinx to heed his master's command. But Phi is disappointed. Not backing down, she grabs Horus by the arm and smushes him in between her jugs. Of course, she'll follow his instructions, but it doesn't mean she'll back down just because Isis told her so. Faking her smile, Isis tells her she understands. But we all know deep down, Isis is already boiling in jealousy. Horus pushes himself away from Phi's embrace and tries changing the subject to subdue the palpable tension. He asks which room would Phi like, to which she quickly answers that it should be next to Horus's room. This time it's Isis' turn. She lays her gentle hands on Horus's arm as she tells Phi that it's not possible since it's already Isis's room. But this Sphinx has her way, asking about the room on the other side, which is currently vacant. Tension sizzles between these two ladies as Isis sarcastically asks Phi they should get along from now on. Crossing her arms, Phi is quite amused that Isis is speaking to her without using honorifics. Letting out an awkward laugh, Horus expresses how he's looking forward to these two getting along. Moments passed and it's already bedtime for Horus. Inside his room, he immediately lies on his bed. With his eyes closed, he notes on how exhausted today has been. From building that sand tower to saving Raku and of course Phi becoming his kin. It's been a very productive day. Tomorrow will be another day for the prince. Maybe he'll go look for food or expand their exploration area. For now, it's lights off for Horus. The next morning, Horus groggily wakes up feeling something heavy laying on him. Lo and behold, it's Phi sitting prettily on top of Horus. Horus screams, obviously startled by Phi's presence. Isis comes running in his room to find a confused and blushing Horus and Phi who's sitting on the bed now. Isis then angrily asks Phi on her motives. She casually calls Isis a little girl and tells her she was actually half asleep and stumbled into the wrong room. It's pretty obvious to Isis that this woman's lying. The poor Horus. He might get a heart attack from all this commotion. And I guess Isis should also have her blood pressure in check. She's going to have her blood boiling now that Phi is here. The girls comprising of Phi, Isis, and Mel are all lounging in the fresh water in the castle's oasis. A bored-looking Phi regrets not going with Horus and Ain. Trying to remind the Sphinx, Isis details out the very important task they have at hand, which is watching over their plant fields. Even Mel agrees with Isis on this one. Plumping up her jugs, Phi emphasizes her usefulness to Horus day and night, at work, or even in private, if you know what she means. This irks Isis as expected, but she doesn't go off on Phi. Instead, Isis tells Phi to help take care of the crops for Horus since she just said she can help with anything. Isis's words are dripping with sarcasm. Mel also chimes in, telling the two girls how Horus will appreciate both meat and vegetable on the table. Now, Phi gets the picture and quickly stand up to get started on the said task. Fi then calls them out for lounging around taking a bath. When Isis sighs like she's holding on to the very last thread of her patience, Mel tries to ease her irritation by telling her to calm down. Looking towards the sky, Isis just hopes Horus and Ain are doing fine in the desert. Speaking of, let's go and see what the boys are doing right now, shall we? The vastness of the desert allows both Horus and Ain to see the monster they're trying to hunt down right now. This beast is no ordinary one, digging its way under the sand and making it difficult for the boys to take it down. The underground beast suddenly launches an attack, making Ain warn Horus ASAP. The fallen prince has been observing the beast actually and is able to subdue its attack using sand magic Iron Sand Wall. Their defense method does not last long though. The monster's attack is too powerful for Horus's current magic skill, breaking the iron sand walls without a hitch. Quick on his feet, Horus backs off just in time for the sand wall to crash. At least he's safe. That was surely a close call for Horus. The monster isn't done yet though. Horus barely managed to dodge the last attack yet. Here's another one coming his way. It's a good thing he's also very skilled in both combat and the use of his magic. Panicking, Horus turns to Ain and tells him they're both facing a monster that's way too strong. Even Ain himself didn't expect this to happen. Ain jumps in to take offense, slashing the sand turtle mole's quartz. Yup, quartz. This monster has been eating the quartz in this region, that's why it's uniquely stronger than the others. As if these two aren't dealing with a strong monster already, the quartz on the turtle's back starts emanating light. The boys are now in for a horrific surprise. A startled Horus immediately casts numerous iron sand walls just to cover them both up. The light starts flashing the surrounding areas before everything its way booms and crashes. Now the boys are really panicking. If they get hit by that beam, they're toast. No pun intended. At some point, Horus realizes it's not just him and Ain, but also Raku. He turns to look for the camel and immediately sees Raku hiding behind a quartz stone. Raku, who's supposed to be hit by the beam by now, is being protected by the quartz. It then clicks in both Horus's and Ain's minds. The quartz crystal reflects the blast. Salvation isn't too hopeless now. Horus quickly gets to work. He starts by reinforcing the sand wall with iron sand like usual. Then he coats the surface with gold sand. And as a finishing touch, he layers quartz sand over it. Voila! A makeshift mirror barrier. With this, they can definitely be protected whilst the beam gets reflected back at the monster. The sand turtle mole's light rays finally reach Horus's area. And just as expected, the beam gets reflected by the makeshift mirror and onto the mole. The mole now gets to taste its own bitter medicine. Before they know it, the sand turtle mole crashes dead in front of the boys. And that's exactly what Horus tells the girls when they come home bearing the sand turtle mole's lifeless body. The three girls are amazed by the mole's huge body, even more amazed that Horus was able to take it down. Mel steps forward, noticing how pretty sparkly the mole's shell is. Ain quips in, telling Mel it isn't just any pretty rock. An enthusiastic Ain then asks Horus about it, to which the prince gladly obliges. Looking at the magnificent stone on the mole's shell, Horus tells everyone it's actually quartz. A stone used to make glass. Isis and Fi both have an idea what's going to happen next. As Horus smiles at his comrades, he tells everyone they're going to make window glass for the castle. Horus then delegates the work amongst everyone. Ain will help him out. Isis and Mel will be in charge of sorting out the dried plants. And lastly, Fi will help with the quartz melting process. As soon as they're done, a new machine has been made. This new baby will have them making windows in no time. Ain signals everyone that the quartz is ready. With this, Horus gives Fi the go signal to start the machine. And it does. Just not for Horus's face. The boy was standing directly in front of the machine, so the heat instantly hits him. But he's okay. And he's happy it's working out just fine too. It doesn't take long for the first window to take shape from the molten quartz. And soon enough, Horus is already knocking on the windows, checking its sturdiness. By then, the castle walls now have windows. It's indeed looking so pretty. Turning to his comrades, Horus thanks them for a job well done. Everyone warmly smiles back at Horus. They're all so proud of their work, especially the mirror they also managed to make. All of them gather in front of the huge mirror. Even if it's still a little rough on the edges, Horus is still so proud of it. Now they can actually be able to tidy themselves up by looking at their reflection. In a worried voice, Mel tells Horus about the terrible lump she's developed on her chest. Yes, exactly that lump she's pointing to. This has Horus feeling like someone just slapped him on the face. What can he expect? They just recently got to see their forms thanks to the fancy mirror they now have. Fi tries reassuring Mel by saying it's natural for them girls to have such lumps on their chest. Looking at Fi, who's also touching her lumps, Mel's worry dissipates. Now it's Ain who's asking why he doesn't have any lumps like the girls. According to Fi, Ain's more of like an armor than a human body, really. Horus then notices Isis's quietness in the corner and instantly defends himself by saying he didn't see anything. Now tall eyes are on Isis. Curious, Ain asks why Isis also lacks the lumps like him. Both Horus and Isis' brains seem to buffer with Ain's question. So the Ant King simply repeats what he said, even adding how both Phi and Mel have what they call lumps. Smiling, Ain points out how Isis has no signs of any swelling at all. This horrifies Horus, especially when he hears Isis tell Ain that she actually does have the same lumps. Taking Ain's hand, Isis grips it far tighter than expected. She then tells Ain to focus on learning other thing first. Ain, on the other hand, winces in pain as Isis now bends his fingers. Horus approaches the Ant King, telling him it's not something Ain should be complaining about. Meanwhile, Isis takes her lumps in her hands and mutter how they're not small. It's just that Phi and Mel's are both way too big. While this commotion is happening, Raku is minding his own business as he poses in front of the mirror, clearly captivated by his own reflection. A smile forms on Horus's face. Seeing everyone, he never expected to have any friends in the desert. It was only him to begin with. Now there's 5 people and 1 camel. To Horus, it feels like his family keeps growing. Life couldn't get any better for the fallen prince. Speaking of family, Horus suddenly recalls Moria and wonders how she's currently doing. What he doesn't know is that Moria Marev is actually walking the vast sandy desert, huffing and puffing as she struggles to survive this heat. She never thought the desert would be this harsh, and now she's out of water. Moria wasn't prepared enough for what she calls the desert of death. Moria now regrets not forcing his brothers to tell her where Horus's exile location exactly is, though she doubts they'll answer her though. Stopping her tracks, Moria uses her spatial magic to grow a flower out of the palm of her hand. Plucking it out, the girl whispers Horus's name. Hope begins to leave Moria's heart, thinking searching for Horus in the desert is impossible for someone like her. I'd think otherwise if I had spatial magic like hers though, but then she remembers why she ventured out here in the first place. Moria can't just give up. She never wants to go back to that castle ever again, even if they beg her to do so. Continuing her walk, Moria sees rabbits hopping all over the sandy desert. She smiles, surprised to find out they exist in this place. Suddenly, the rabbits get eaten by a frog-like monster that just came out from the sand. The frog then spots Moria, locking in on its next prey. It quickly flicks its sticky tongue on Moria, who uses her spatial magic, spatial transfer, to transport the monster out of her sight. Flipping her hair, this girl shows us why she's definitely a boss babe. All of a sudden, Moria's body goes numb. Her whole body feels like it's burning hot. Moria suspects it could be from the monster's saliva. Could it have been poison? Before she could even call for help, Moria collapses on the sand. Will help come before danger does? In the castle, while having a sumptuous meal, Horus mentions about spatial magic. Lately, things have been getting more and more convenient for everyone, and the use of spatial magic would be beneficial for them to store food and tools easily. On a side note, can I just say how fancy schmancy cooking in the desert has been for these people? Look at that divine crab-like monster they've cooked. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. Horus only knows one person who uses spatial magic, and that's his little sister Moria. Agreeing with Horus, Isis looks towards the heap of stuff in the castle. With how messy it's been, spatial magic could really be useful right now. No one other than Isis seems to be interested in the topic as well. Phi is busy asking for another piece of crab claw from Ain, who thinks it's too big of a piece for a lady like Phi. It's only then that Isis realizes the piece of information Horus just mentioned. She immediately asks about the little sister Horus has. Even Phi is interested now, mentioning not one of them has ever heard of Horus's family. Ain also chimes in, expressing his curiosity with knowing what kind of girl Horus's sister is. While chewing on his food, Horus recalls the only thing he's ever told them is how he was banished, and it's not even the complete story. With a despondent look, Horus decides to tell everyone a summarized version of his awful past. He starts off with telling them the reason why he was exiled, because he only had a single sand attribute. This didn't bode well coming from a royal prince like him. Horus has 4 older brothers who are all douches. Then there's his little sister Moria, who is the only one who ever truly cared for him. Of all his family, Horus is the only one to resist the Empire's acts of aggression too. After hearing Horus's story, Ayin slams his fist on the table. He is deeply angry with how the king, Horus's father, quickly underestimated Horus's power. Phi's pretty casual about it, since all the humans she's known in her life are truly foolish and pitiful creatures. And then there's Isis, who feels sad for Horus. She's hurt by the fact that there's only one person that truly saw Horus's potential. Even Mel calls it strange that Moria is part of Horus's family, yet she's nothing like the rest of them. This brings a smile on Horus's face, remembering that his mother used to dislike conflict like Moria. Using his sand magic, Horus brings out a single stem of flower and thinks about how his little sister is doing. Not long, a bunch of black ants come to report an emergency to Horus. Ain quickly crouches, recognizing the scout ants he sent away to survey the area. Upon hearing the ants' report, Ain quickly tells Horus that the ants found an unconscious girl to the southwest of their location. When Horus asks about the girl's features, the ants then describe the girl having blonde hair that's tied on both sides. The girl also has big, jewel-like eyes. Hearing the girl's description freezes Horus's for a brief moment. He doesn't say a word but listens to the rest of the report. The ants then tells them that the girl was attacked by a frog monster, but in an instant she transported them using her magic. However, she was poisoned with a strong paralytic and rendered unable to move. Afterwards, she was shackled and abducted by sand goblins. Sounds familiar? It should, because Horus also realizes who this girl could be. He quickly gets up and presses everyone they have to save her because he strongly believes it's his sister Moria. Horus is now running against time. Just like with Isis, if they don't hurry, those nasty sand goblins are going to hurt Moria. Ain also adds that one of the scout ants actually stayed behind and is now tailing them. If they follow the pheromones, they'll be able to track the goblin's den. Horus gets moving, rushing to open the nearby castle window and summons Sandwave to transport them to the den. With Ain guiding them, Horus hopes to save his sister no matter what. Phi, who notices the tension in Horus's body, asks her master not to get carried away too much. She also shares her worry for the shackles the goblins have used on Moria. Pressing herself on Horus's back, Phi shares how sand goblins are sly and cunning monsters who use traps as weapons. They're known for this, but Phi has never heard of goblins shackling and carrying someone away. They must be careful, she reminds. Horus agrees with her. It's not like he's the type to be careless anyways. Creating a sandball, Horus aims this up in the sky where a bird-like monster is about to attack them. The prince is calm, all right. Everyone stares at the fallen bird in surprise. No one really noticed the monster that was about to attack them. This eases the worry in Phi's heart, now knowing Horus is in full control of his emotions. They soon arrive at the location. The scout ant immediately beckons everyone to follow him towards the goblin's den. While walking the sandy trail, Horus finds a flower on the ground similar to the one he made earlier. Picking it up, Horus can now confirm that the kidnapped girl is really Moria. This flower, which Horus made from sand, is the exact one he sent her a while ago. This just makes their rescue mission even more pressing. Racing against time, the pheromone trail still continues ahead, so they must rush there at once. At the end of the trail is the skeletal remains of a giant monster which serves as the entrance of the den. Hiding behind some rocks, everyone waits and observes the goblins guarding the entrance with their spears. The scout ant starts gibbering something, to which Ain translates for Horus. This ant apparently wishes to have more strength to fight alongside Horus. Smiling, Horus takes the ant from his shoulders and pets its head for a job well done. If it weren't for the scout ant, they wouldn't have been able to locate the den in the first place. Ain swiftly gets on his knees, calling the attention of his lord. But before he could utter a single word, Phi and Mel nudge him aside to ask Horus for some petting as well. Yup, that's what Ain was about to ask Horus too. Isis doesn't really say a word. Instead, her whole face turns red as a tomato, clearly embarrassed to hear the other girls asking for some petting. Horus looks at them dumbfoundedly. He can guess that familiars want to be petted, but why is Isis joining in this too? Moving on to more pressing matters, they still need to save Moria. So Mel steps out, declaring she go first. She then uses light magic finger flash to strike two goblins right in the head. This causes a full-blown commotion which alerts the other goblins. Now for Phi's turn. With just one swift motion of her hand, the boulder right above the goblins gets sliced in half and lands directly on them. The remaining goblins then call for backup. And soon enough, the group is surrounded by even more goblins. Ain then tells Phi off for her flashy attack. Now they have to face another batch of monsters. They don't have a choice but to face their foes though. With Horus's direction, Mel aims for the messenger goblins while Ain, Phi, and Horus all aim to subdue the rest of the goblins. While everyone goes to battle, Isis watches with the eagerness to help. Because her magic is more about healing and support, Isis could only wish she could fight too. A goblin then comes from behind her, and although Isis is startled, she quickly picks up a wooden blunt on the desert ground. With not much thought of it, Isis swings it towards the goblin and knocks it out cold. That goblin is also the last one they had to defeat too. Good job, Isis! Wiping the sweat from his forehead, Ain can't help but say something about the multiple explosions Phi made that caused more and more goblins to appear. But he awkwardly denies it when Phi asks if it was her fault. I guess this Ant King is afraid of the Sphinx. Before an argument ensues, Horus reminds them of why they're here in the first place, and that's to save Moria. They all venture inside where Isis knows there's a cave up ahead. With Mel using her magic to make some light, everyone walks the path with determination to find Moria. While walking, they see swords and armor. There are gems and ornaments too, which are probably plundered from adventurers that got lost in the desert. Up ahead that pile of things, Horus finally sees Moria. But as soon as he's about to call her, Isis stops him and points out the goblin shaman. And behind the shaman is a humongous goblin sitting casually. When Ain guesses it as the Goblin King, Phi corrects him. Judging by its size, it's just a goblin giant. Whispering, Isis tells everyone that the shaman's magic and the giant's brute strength are not to be played with. Therefore, they must plan this out carefully. However, Fi is confident she could easily defeat their enemies. How? By blowing everything up in an instant. This plan isn't really ideal, and Isis quietly scolds Fi for it. If Fi carries out her plan, then Moria will get caught up in the explosion. It's a good thing Horus already has a plan in mind and readily tells everyone of it. Horus only wants Fi to be their secret weapon. Having a divine beast as their last resort would let them fight with some peace of mind. So if things go awry, Horus will give out a signal and only then Fi will help them. With a smile and almost pleading demeanor, Horus asks the Sphinx if this plan is okay with her, to which she agrees to. Now they need to talk about a plan in defeating these goblins. With the goblins' numbers, it won't be easy for sure. Horus thinks long and hard about their offense game. These goblins aren't different from other goblin species. Therefore, they should be attracted to anything shiny. With this in mind, gold sand will come in handy. They just need to do something about the difference in numbers. Horus has made a sand golem to attack the remaining goblins. It's doing a pretty good job in drawing the goblins' attention too. Now they just need to get closer to Moria. The prince is currently cloaked in a camouflage type of cloth. With him is Mel, who's been clinging unto him this whole time. When she asks if something was wrong, Horus assures her that he's just checking the surroundings. Horus also reminds her that they need to be extra careful so the shaman and giant goblins won't notice them. Hearing his master's instruction, Mel is determined to stick closer to Horus. By the looks of it, too close if you ask me. A little while earlier, Horus revealed his plan. Fi and Ain will use Horus's golem to draw the goblins' attention. In that time frame, Horus and Mel will be covered in the mirror's veil and will rescue Moria. Mel is initially confused why Horus would take her with him. Won't she just be a burden to the prince during battle? Horus doesn't see it like that at all. In fact, he won't fight until they've successfully taken Moria to a safe place. And in the case that they get spotted, Horus needs Mel to blind the goblins with her light magic. This means Mel is essential to Horus's plan. After everyone agrees, their rescue operation soon begins. Fi and Ain both take the goblins head-on while the camouflaged Horus and Mel carefully make their way towards Moria's location. However, the shaman catches their veil and uses his staff to cast a spell on them, destroying the veil instantly. Now the giant is standing up with his axe weapon ready to pounce Horus and Mel. As soon as the giant swings his axe at them, Horus makes his iron sand wall for defense, and with his signal, Mel uses her magic to flash blinding light on both the giant and the shaman. While both enemies are currently visually impaired, Horus swoops in to get Moria. After successfully taking her, Horus leaves Moria with Isis and joins the others in subduing the goblins, especially the cunning shaman and strong giant. Things get even problematic when the shaman uses its reinforcement magic to transform the giant to an even more stronger and bigger monster. But Horus isn't worried at all. Since he doesn't need to worry about his magic hitting Moria anymore, he can absolutely go all out now. Casting sand magic, Iron Sand Spear, Horus is able to surround the giant with thousands of arrows, and once the arrows are shot, the giant is killed in a flash. Both Fi and Ain watch their master with deep admiration. They expect nothing less from Horus himself. Sometime later, Moria begins waking up. Although still a bit blurry, Moria immediately recognizes Horus. As soon as she realizes it's really her brother, Moria clings onto Horus for a teary-eyed hug. The prince smiles warmly as he assures Moria she's safe now. Isis watches the siblings reunite and gets teary-eyed as well. Unfortunately, Fi tells everyone it's not the right time to relax and points out something about Moria's actions. What appears to be a sisterly hug isn't the case at all. Moria begins sounding like a dying cat as she takes in her brother's scent and chest. Not long, Moria tells Horus she can't hold it back anymore and reveals she's been desperately longing for Horus every single day. Horus is beyond confused, especially when he feels Moria trembling for an unknown reason. Just a side note, they're both step-siblings. Fi and Isis watch all of this in disbelief, and Moria's not done yet, asking Horus to hug her even tighter and to desire her more. Well, Isis is now horrified to say the least. When she tries to call their attention, Moria, who's still hugging Horus by the way, looks at Isis with coldness. Isis is taken aback with Moria's stare. It's like she's staring at an enemy. Pulling away a bit, Moria then asks Horus on who the other three girls are. Moria doesn't even hold back a single bit, calling the girls seriously descriptive names. First, Moria describes Fi as a suspicious-looking dark-skinned woman who seems likely to seduce men. Then she proceeds with calling Mel an unbalanced girl having a young face but a mature body that'll ruin men. And lastly, Isis, who Moria sees as a witch pretending to be harmless but secretly scheming to steal Horus. Ain can't seem to read the tension between the girls and cluelessly asks Moria for his description. Horus pays no mind upon hearing Moria's words and tells her the girls are his comrades that helped him rescue Moria. Shocked, she apologizes immediately for the rudeness but angrily warns everyone to stay away from his brother as she won't hand him over to anyone. Horus doesn't remember his sister to be this clingy before. Or is it because she left home, went through dangerous events, and felt lonely? Anyways, Horus diverts her attention by telling Moria he need to remove the shackles on her wrists. After instructing Moria to put the chain on the ground, Horus uses Sandblade to destroy it. Unfortunately, not a single scratch was made on the shackles, so Ain volunteers to give it a try. Yet the shackles remain scratch-free. Ain then turns to Phi, asking the Sphinx if there's anything she could do to it. But Phi explains that the shackles has a curse inscription placed upon it. Even a Sphinx like her would have a difficult time dispelling it. So Isis steps in to use her magic. She thinks the curse would undo itself if they ask the shackles. Still scratch-free, but it did gain a voice. The shackles itself tells them it won't come off that easily. Of course, everyone gets spooked, especially Moria, who happens to be shackled to it. The shackles even confirms to Moria that it can talk, causing the poor girl to smack it relentlessly on a nearby rock. Although it won't do damage to it, the shackles still reprimand Moria for being annoying. It then asks Moria why give it life if they're just going to call it gross. Horus is confused while Phi praises Isis for using an interesting kind of magic. But Isis's face is filled with disappointment. Her magic can grant raw life force itself. Sometimes high-level magical tools gain will on their own. Isis was hoping to ask the shackles directly to unlock itself. Right now, Moria is splayed on the desert ground, seemingly hopeless from this ordeal. The shackles answer Isis as well, pointing out its job is to lock and not unlock. It'll keep locking and locking. Unlocking is impossible ever. Isis tries to persuade the shackles too. However, the shackles still won't budge and give Isis a condition. If Isis lets it lock onto her instead, the shackles might reconsider. Upon hearing this, Moria vehemently refuses. Isis also saved her life, and there's no way Moria would want Isis to be her substitute. Having another idea, Ain asks if Moria can free herself using her spatial magic. While Horus thinks it's a great idea, the shackles immediately dissuade them. The moment Moria separates from it, Moria's spirit will be torn apart and she'll die. Sadness fills Moria's eyes. Does this mean the shackles will be with them for a while? Sighing, Moria accepts her fate and names the shackles Shackles. Pretty creative, huh? Now that things are settled, Phi then asks Horus about exploring the rest of the den. Ain immediately agrees, saying there might be treasure stashed inside. Horus realizes Ain's right. Goblins are known to hoard valuables. They might even find something to remove shackle. Or maybe not. Before they leave, Isis calls Moria's attention to tell her it's weird that she's also shackled to Horus like a leech. Isis views this as too much closeness that ordinary siblings normally have. Moria answers that it's perfectly normal everywhere, to which Phi calls a lie. Horus then intervenes and tells Moria he can't see ahead. Moria looks deep into Horus's eyes, telling her brother his vision should be filled with her alone. Phi then cuts the moment, hugging Horus from behind. She then calls Moria girl number 2 and commands her to show some respect to her rescuer and to move aside. Squished between two girls like this isn't doing well for Horus's peace of mind. Isis can only stand on the sides, calling out Phi for her brazenness. With all these ruckus, Moria lifts a single finger and nonchalantly uses her spatial magic to teleport Phi towards Isis. Now Phi is hugging Isis. Moria sincerely thanks Phi for saving her, but also highlights how rescuing her is different from her possessiveness with Horus. Well, that's an additional girl vying for the prince's heart, and an additional headache for Isis. Now that they've decided to explore the goblin's den for treasure, the group venture further inside the cave. They discover the complexity of its interior, and considering its sheer scale, Ain believes there might be some hostages too. Not long after, Horus hears voices from around the corner of the cave. Everyone then rushes towards the area and are greeted by the sight of a cage. Approaching it, a nasty smell engulfs Horus's senses. The smell had come from inside the cage, which imprisons at least 5 slaves. Not wasting any of their time, Ain steps forward and destroys the cage with his mighty weapon. After thanking Ain, Horus extends his hand towards one of the slaves and tells them they're free to get out of the cage now. But Horus's kindness is met with fear and hostility, surprising the prince a bit. One slave even gets into a protective stance, as if Horus and the others are their enemies. Horus understands they're terrified right now. And seeing the collars around their necks, Horus realizes these imprisoned people are slaves. The protective slave suddenly grabs a piece of sharp wood from the broken cage and aims it at Horus. He then angrily asks the prince what he wants from them. Why would they come right now after all this time? This slave thinks Horus will just take them and sell them off again. This is when Isis steps in front of Horus, telling the slave they are not here to sell them. Instead, they're here to help. Isis then steps inside the cage and proceeds towards the ill slave lying on the ground. Crouching, Isis begins summoning her life magic, life restoration. A magic circle then appears in front of her and orbs of light begin to surround the ill slave. A few moments after, the ill slave reveals his wound is now healed. When Horus asks the slaves if they trust them now, one answers yes. But then, not everyone is on board with it. One female slave screams she won't trust Horus. Unlike the ill slave who only had a collar, the female slaves are actually under a slow goblin's curse. Upon seeing the mark on the girl's stomach, Fi realizes the girls' bodies are magically mutated just to bear goblin children. This makes the female slave angry. Now that they've lost all hope for help to arrive, now that they're like this, help suddenly bursts the cages open? Why? Suddenly the raging female slave's collar is now on the ground. Thanks to Moria's spatial magic, the collar is now history. It's also a good thing the collar's an old model, so it's not really harmful, unlike the one on Moria's wrists. Then it's Isis's turn. Crouching in front of the female slave's body, Isis lifts her hand towards the mark on the slave's stomach. If magic cursed them to be like this, then Isis can just use her life magic to rewind their body's current state. The cursed mark on both the female slaves are now starting to disappear. And soon after, it's totally wiped clean like it was never there in the first place. After that, Moria also worked her spatial magic to undo the collars on the rest of the slaves' necks. Now that the collars are gone and the goblin's magic has vanished, Isis declares these people free. They're not slaves anymore. All the 5 slaves are elated with joy. They're now truly free. While they celebrate their newfound freedom, one slave asks about them being registered with the slave guild. Moria chimes in to reply, telling them that the desert is the land Horus, her brother, will rule. They don't need to worry about those things anymore. A humble Horus smiles at them, assuring them that they don't have to worry at all. He's still not ruling the desert yet, but these people are in Horus's good hands. The short-haired slave couldn't hold back her tears anymore. She tearfully thanks Horus and the others for rescuing all of them. Now that that's out of the way, Horus tells everyone they'll resume their treasure hunt. The slaves are now confused as to why they would look for treasure in a goblin's nest. But nevertheless, Horus crouches down to use sand sense. Since they've already saved Moria, it'll be a waste to go back to the castle empty-handed. He then turns around and tells the slaves he already took care of the goblins. All of them are surprised, of course. When one asks about the giant goblin, Horus smilingly tells them he beat that one as well. All of the slaves are now dumbstruck, just in awe of the people that saved them. While walking, Isis is the one to tell them that Horus uses sand magic. This is why Moria knows her brother will make the perfect king of the desert. All of the slaves look at Horus with utter respect. One slave even approaches him, calling him Your Majesty, as she thanks Horus for helping her. This is a bit awkward for Horus, who asks for them to stop. All these compliments sure are making his back all tingly. Fi calls this Horus's moment for pride. After all, he did build a castle, evolved monsters into human forms, and even tamed divine beasts. Fi just added more fuel to the fire, perhaps. Now the slaves are taking all these information in with amazement. Grabbing Horus, Fi smushes him on her chest, even putting his hand on one of her ample melons. She then tells the slaves they're lucky to be standing before the future king of the desert. The poor prince struggles to talk whilst being smushed like this. He's beyond confused as to what Fi's doing right now and asks the Sphinx exactly that. Answering him, Fi casually tells him that a king surrounds himself with women, and that's exactly what she's doing. Perhaps the Sphinx has Horus mistaken, because that's not what the prince wants honestly. While his hands are still on Fi's jugs, the slaves horrifically watch this scene unfold. They can't believe just because Horus is a king, it's an all-you-can-touch free-for-all for him. Hearing this has Horus pulling away from Fi's hold. But then again, he's no match for Fi's strength. She easily takes his hand again, this time placing it inside her shirt. Horus screams as he's being forced to do things against his will. Now Moria and Mel are furious and jealous. Moria angrily screams at Fi, telling the Sphinx it's a sister's job to look after her brother. Mel expresses how she also wants to serve the king too. Horus then gets surrounded by the 3 girls who are both asking to be touched and felt like Fi. Even the shackles cheer on for the girls to go wild. Horus, on the other hand, fears for his purity now. He doesn't really want any of the things the girls are offering. While that's happening, the female slaves call Isis's attention, asking her if she didn't want to join the others. Blushing, Isis tells them she's fine and that she and Horus are just comrades. She goes on to ramble about them being absolutely good comrades and that there's no need for any service or anything like that. The 2 female slaves look at each other, looking past Isis' poor reasoning. They then cheer on for Isis to go for it and to not lose to the other women. This makes Isis even more horrified. Their cheers is only making her feel like she's actually losing. The short-haired slave then gives Isis a push, insisting that she make a move or else the others will snatch Horus. While the other girls fight to have Horus, Isis pulls the prince towards her. And when he looks at Isis, he's met with glittering eyes and a blushing face. Totally kawaii! Even Horus is starstruck. A worried Moria screams, telling everyone her brother has fallen prey to the witches. That's Isis, poisonous fangs. Fi, on the other hand, is impressed with Isis's move. That was a good one, honestly. Even the slaves are embarrassed. Anyways, they soon arrive at a place glittering like diamonds. The short-haired slave crouches to the sandy ground, amazed with the sparkling sand. She then calls Horus's attention to tell him the place is full of jewel sand. Horus doesn't seem to know what jewel sand is, so the slave enumerates all the present jewel in the sand: diamonds, rubies, sapphires, and even pearls. Fi has also found seashells around the corner, guessing the goblins must have gathered these as food. They were only here to save Moria, but then they get this amount of jewels as bonus? As Mel would call it, what a stroke of luck. However, Horus seems to have no use for jewels, to which Fi refutes. To her, having assets is never a loss. And besides, these jewels are very useful to Horus. Bending down, Fi strains her hand on the jewels, revealing it to be in sand form. As soon as Horus hears this, he immediately summons a diamond golem using his sand magic. Everyone is happy to see Horus using the jewel sand. For now, Horus instructs everyone to bring back as much as the castle can store. Before he could finish talking, Fi, who's writing something on the rocky wall, catches Horus's attention. The writing is a warning to everyone who dare enters the premises and steals the sand. This entire area is now under the dominion of the Desert King, the supreme land, and the removal of sand or any resources is strictly forbidden. Signed by hers truly, servant of the great Sand King, the Sphinx. Well, that should do the trick, right? That is the end of the recap at Chapter 10. Please read the pinned comment about the next part.